How's it going, everyone? Jimmy here, and today I want to talk about the upcoming balance patch for Arcade Edition. This one came as a big surprise to myself and many others. Capcom announced the balance patch today, and they're already releasing it tomorrow. So I'm very grateful Capcom is doing something about the balance of the game this early on. So just like with the AE patch notes, I want to talk about the upcoming changes from the perspective of a Ryu player. We're going to talk about the general changes first, then we're going to move on to the Ryu changes specifically, and then afterwards I'm going to give you guys my impression on the overall changes and how Ryu fits into the new version of the game. The first general change I want to talk about today is about throw escapes. Now, to most players this is not going to matter at all, but apparently on the highest level of play there is an option select that involves teching a throw and using a special move at the same time. Now, to be honest, as a Ryu player, I don't even know about this just because Ryu doesn't benefit from teching a throw and using a special move at the same time. But I was thinking about Tokido's options on Wake Up, and I realized he was going for a lot of EX demon flips, and I might be wrong on this, but I think what he's doing is he's teching a throw and doing demon flip at the same time. So what would happen on Wake Up is you would try to throw Tokido and he'd get a tech, but if you, let's say you go for a shimmy against him, then he'd get the EX demon flip automatically. And I think this is what Capcom wants to address. The way they're going to fix this is by removing the ability to tech a throw when you input a special move. It's a very straightforward way to do this, and I'm really happy Capcom is patching this out of the game, because like, how do you get the knockdown state in Street Fighter V? Like, why are you supposed to pressure your opponent? It's because you won an interaction in the neutral game, and as a reward you get to pressure your opponent. I really don't think it's a good thing for some characters to have access to a tool that denies you your reward from winning an interaction in the neutral game. Especially like a character like Akuma already rarely loses these kind of interactions to begin with. So yeah, I think it's a really good thing, and it kind of reminds me of the way we had to deal with the Jump Tech OS in Season 1 and how it got patched out. Some people were unhappy about the change, but I truly believe it overall improved the game. The next thing they changed is the damage on normal throws, and when I read that I was really excited. I have to say I was super excited because I thought, okay, it's finally gonna make sense to use throws and also to tech a throw on high level. And then I went through the changes for each character and I realized, oh, okay, yes, they did increase the damage on the throws, but they also nerfed most of the throws by either by adding more recovery frames or by changing the distance on a successful throw. And that really bothers me a lot, because at the moment on high level, the best defense you have is by holding down back. Basically, there is no mind game because throws are currently so weak. Like, a good player will never risk losing a game because they try to tech a throw. In Street Fighter V, you get so much value out of your opponent trying to tech, and you almost get nothing from a successful throw. So it just makes sense on high level to take every throw, go back in a neutral position, and then try to win from there. And this change is only going to make this problem worse. And this is why I don't get this. I don't get why Capcom doesn't see that the mind games are super boring at the moment in Street Fighter V. Most players are just holding down back because throws are so incredibly weak that it just doesn't make sense to die or trying to tech something that doesn't do anything. And yeah, I wanna see some changes to that. I think it kind of highlights we need more defensive options in general. Maybe some kind of new universal tool that everybody can use. I don't know. I really dislike the way the game is currently played like in the knockdown situation, because throws are way too weak. And yeah, I want to see this changed. Let's talk about V reversal for a second. Now, in Season 1, this tool was considered really strong because not only could you prevent your opponent from being offensive, you actually got a lot of offense yourself, because most V reversals would lead into a knockdown state. Now, I think Capcom didn't like the fact that you got so much offense from a defensive tool, so what they did in Season 2 was add a lot of recovery frames, so you were forced to just go back to the neutral situation. As a result, most players were not willing to use V reversal anymore because They were not willing to give up their V-trigger activation for something this weak. V-trigger for most characters is their primary tool to win rounds, so why would you give that up for a tool that doesn't lead into any kind of offense? This leads us to the upcoming changes for V reversals, and in the Capcom blog post it reads, overall rebalancing for the move startup and performance. And I thought, okay, this has to be a buff, right? Because nobody's really using this tool at the moment. And I'm wrong. A lot of characters are gonna see a nerf for the startup and the recovery frames after the patch goes live. Now, just to be clear, it's not really a massive nerf, and it seems more like Capcom is trying to unify the properties for V reversals, for the slow V reversals at the very least. And I think that's a good thing overall. If you have a setup that blows up V reversal, and like you have to like test it out for each character, it's kind of annoying. This way, if you know, okay, this is a character with a slow V reversal, you're gonna know after the patch goes live that the startup is gonna be 17 frames. It's unified, and I think I like this change a lot. So let's talk about the last general change that Capcom mentions in their blog post, and I think it's gonna be the most significant one, and it's about crush counters. They're gonna change the scaling on crush counters. So, like, why is this a big deal? If you've been following my channel for a while, you know I'm not a big fan of how crush counters are implemented in Street Fighter V. I think they destroy the footsie battle entirely, and they make it into a game where every character is just pressing their best crush counter button in the neutral game, and the main counter to that is jumping in on your opponent at the perfect time. So you have to have a read. So all you see in Street Fighter V is basically character A pressing Heart Punch and character B trying to get a free jump in because character A tried to use crush counters. And it makes the gameplay kind of stupid in the neutral. And I think it's the main problem that a lot of players have when you compare it to something like Street Fighter IV, which was heavily footsie based, and it was considered very skillful to apply like good spacing and a good sense for how to play footsies. And in Street Fighter V, it's not so much the case, and the main reason is crush counters. So I'm really happy Capcom is finally addressing this, so I really hope the scaling is going to be high on any crush counter combo, because it's just so stupid how strong these moves are. One more thing I want to mention before moving on to Ryu is a general change that for some reason Capcom isn't even mentioning as a general change, but if you go through the changes for every character, it becomes very obvious. Capcom is nerfing anti-air jabs even further. And yeah, I know a lot of you guys really dislike anti-air jabs, and it seems they're finally going away with the upcoming patch. So let's talk about the Ryu changes. I've kind of already covered a little bit of his changes in the general section. His forward throw, for example, deals a little bit more damage, but has 2 frames more recovery, and his anti-air jab, the standing light punch, apparently is no longer an anti-air, but we'll see about that, I guess. I mean, Capcom has kind of said that already, and it still kind of works. So yeah, we'll see about that. But the general portion of the changes for Ryu seem to revolve around changes for V-Trigger 1 and V-Trigger 2. So let's get started with the V-Trigger 1 changes. The first thing they changed about the V-Trigger 1 is the timer. Instead of 800 frames, we get 1000 frames of V-Trigger time. And I was really excited when I read that at first, and then I realized, oh, they also increased the usage of the V-Trigger gauge when you throw fireballs. So overall, this is actually more of a nerf than it is a buff. One thing that is cool though is the fact that, like, because you have an increased timer, it's gonna make your opponent more likely to jump in. Like, you have more opportunities to anti-air your opponent because they expect you to throw more fireballs in V-Trigger mode. So patient players are actually gonna see some kind of benefit from playing patiently, which is really cool. But as I said, I think the timer being set to 1000 and the way you're gonna use up your V-Trigger gauge, I think this is more of a nerf than it is a buff. So let's talk about the fireball in V-Trigger mode. At the moment, you use 50 frames out of the V-Trigger timer whenever you throw a fireball. This is pretty nice because since Season 3, we can actually throw around 8 fireballs per V-Trigger 1 activation. This was a gigantic buff, by the way. Previously, we were only used to throwing 4 fireballs max per activation. So this was a big buff in Arcade Edition, that is gonna see a nerf right now, because we're jumping from 50 frames of usage to 100 frames. Now, this translates to about 6 or 7 fireballs per activation, so it's not really a gigantic nerf, but it is gonna be noticeable. I am really disappointed with the way Shoryuken and EX Shoryuken are gonna work in V-Trigger mode. You're gonna have to pay 150 frames of your V-Trigger gauge just to use those moves. And it's incredible. Like, this kind of breaks V-Trigger 1 entirely. This makes it super bad for multiple reasons. Like, think about this for a second. We have 1000 frames now of V-Trigger timer. That seems really nice, but it's actually just 3 seconds more than we currently have. And the funny part about this is because we can anti-air more consistently now, but anti-airing actually comes with a price. And this is the saddest part about this whole thing. If I anti-air my opponent, I'm gonna pay 150 frames of my V-Trigger gauge to do that. I think this should not be the case at all. I'm basically getting punished for successfully anti-airing my opponent. Not only that, like, think about the corner combos that Ryu got in Arcade Edition. You can do some really cool stuff with Fireball into Shoryuken. Previously it used to cost 50 frames of your V-Trigger gauge, and now it costs 200 frames of your gauge. That's 4 times like the V-Trigger gauge that you spend on the same combo, which makes the new optimal combos useless. You're not going to be able to do them anymore because the price is too high. Previously, you could also do double Shoryuken combos in very specific situations. You could do light Shoryuken into heavy Shoryuken. That's new in Arcade Edition, and that's entirely gone. I will never do that ever again, just because, like, previously I didn't have to pay any price for this combo, and now I have to pay 1/3 of my entire V-Trigger bar for this combo. It's incredibly bad. I'm very displeased with the way Capcom is destroying Ryu's Shoryuken in V-Trigger mode, basically telling him, okay, if you want to anti-air your opponent, if you want to use any useful combo, you're gonna get rid of your V-Trigger bar entirely. So yeah, those are the changes for Ryu's V-Trigger 1. It's kind of ironic how I recently uploaded a video about the V-Trigger 2 and how useless it is, especially comparing it to V-Trigger 1. I never imagined Capcom was gonna fix V-Trigger 2 by making V-Trigger 1 worse than V-Trigger 2. So I mean, I guess that's a way to balance things out. But yeah, obviously I'm very disappointed. I think the new V-Trigger 1 is gonna be worse than the original V-Trigger 1 of Ryu in Season 1 that he had. And back then it was considered one of the worst V-Triggers in the game, just so you know. But yeah, this is how Capcom wants things to be. Whatever, let's take a look at the V-Trigger 2. So right off the bat, I want to say that a lot of the stuff I'm about to say about the V-Trigger 2 is speculation because of the poor wording on Capcom's end. Half the stuff that they write about V-Trigger 2 makes no sense to me. So yeah, you guys tell me whether I'm wrong or right about the interpretation of the wording. So let's get this started with the first thing about V-Trigger 2. So they say they changed that the counter judgment will become active from 1 frame of Isshin receiving an attack. Okay, as I said, this is really weirdly worded and I have no clue what it's supposed to mean, but I hope it means the parry is going to be active from frame 1 instead of frame 2. This would be a huge deal and might make V-Trigger 2 viable by itself. There's a gigantic difference between 1 frame of startup and 2 frames of startup, because if you have 1 frame of startup, what that essentially means is on wake up my opponent cannot do a meaty attack anymore. That's a big deal because they have to worry about the parry. If there's 1 frame startup, it means that the move is active on frame 1. So I can wake up to a meaty attack and actually parry it successfully. So that would make Ryu's defense a lot better. It would really tone down offense in general just because I have this V-Trigger active. So yeah, I'm really hoping this is the case. It would make a gigantic difference, as I said. The next change for the V-Trigger 2 reads, remove the counter hit judgment from a successful Isshin activation. And once again, I'm not entirely sure what that means. it kind of sounds like they really mean the V-Trigger 2 activation and not the parry itself. So yeah, I don't really know. If you activate V-Trigger 2 at the moment, do you get put in a counter hit state? So if your opponent is like just about to hit you and you activate V-Trigger 2, do you get counter hit state from that? Like, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense anyways, and if that's what they mean, it's really not a big change to begin with, because you wouldn't want to do a raw V-Trigger 2 activation in your opponent's face anyways. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping what they mean by that is a parry, so I'm hoping they're going to remove the counter hit state from a parry attempt, because at the moment that's like a big deal. You have a lot of recovery on a V-Trigger 2 parry, and if you miss it, your opponent has a lot of time to get a crush counter combo. So that would definitely be a big deal if at the very least you wouldn't get punished as hard when you try to go for that parry. So the next change reads, can cancel the recovery into EX donkey kick only on hit. I think this one is a little bit more clear because the only on hit part kind of makes it obvious they're talking about a successful parry attempt. And this is actually one of the changes that I suggested. One of my major issues I had with V-Trigger 2 is the fact that you only get a Shoryuken follow-up when you do a parry. And even though it deals a lot of damage, because the V-Trigger 2 parry deals a lot of damage already, it doesn't feel satisfying really, and like you don't get any Oki, you get decent damage, but it doesn't feel like it's worth taking that risk with the parry to get that damage. And if you can spend a little bit of bar, like with the EX donkey kick, I think it's gonna make it a lot better. It kind of depends on the extra damage, like how much scaling is there and how much damage do you actually get from doing this combo. But I think it's gonna be nice to at least test out, and it's probably gonna be worth it. So the last change for the V-Trigger 2 is about the axe kick and the solar plexus being able to be cancelled into V-Trigger 2. I don't really think this is going to be a big deal, but maybe I'm overlooking something. Maybe it is going to be a lot more useful, but at the moment I don't really see it. I think if you do axe kick or solar plexus, you're going to be fine either way. Usually you want to do something unsafe into a cancel for the V-Trigger, so you do sweep into V-Trigger 2 cancel, for example, because you want to be safe, and if you get the hit, you get the knockdown Oki. And that's very useful. But if I do solar plexus, I'm already kind of expecting a hit, and on hit I can confirm into a combo anyways, so I don't need the cancel. So yeah, I don't really think it's going to be that useful, but who knows. It's a nice touch, and I'm certainly gonna test this out. So yeah guys, those are my thoughts on the upcoming changes for Ryu. Obviously, as you can see, I'm not very happy with a lot of the changes that Ryu got, especially the way they destroyed V-Trigger 1. But yeah, the best thing that Ryu's gonna receive in the upcoming patch is the nerfs to the other characters. One major issue that we currently have with the balancing is high tier characters are very far apart from low tier characters, and hopefully the upcoming balance patch is gonna fix that. Only time will tell, so we'll still have to wait and see. One more thing that is worth mentioning is Cammy. It's interesting how every top tier character got nerfed significantly, except for her. She actually got some interesting buffs. So it makes you really wonder how much in advance does Capcom work on these balance patches, because if they had taken recent tournament results into consideration, I don't think they would have buffed Cammy. So yeah, I guess we have to expect a lot of Cammys with the upcoming patch. So yeah guys, let me know what you think about the upcoming balance patch in the comment section below. So thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.